Hi, my name is Sydney Bullock, and you're listening to a coming of age movie.
What's up, everyone? I'm Kira.
And I'm Julia. Welcome or welcome back to A Coming of Age Movie.
This week, we're super excited to be joined by actress Sydney Bullock.
You may know her as Stacey from Stranger Things or from her appearances in Goosebumps, Dynasty, and more.
Sydney, thank you so much for coming on this week. We're so excited to talk to you.
Thank you. I'm so excited too.
So we'll jump right into the questions. We have a lot of questions, and we're super excited to meet you.
So,
Yay.
so I'll start off. How old were you when you first started acting?
Well, I got into theater whenever I was really young, probably about 5 or 6, but I started doing film when I was about 9, I think.
Okay.
What were some of your first things that you did when you were getting into film?
Well, I've done a few indie films. So the first thing I ever did was a local independent film here in Kentucky, and I think it was like around my 10th birthday. So,
Oh, wow.
That's so cute. Yeah, let's do
I
it.
was, yeah, my 10-year-old self was just loving it.
Well, that's great. So now that you're not 10 and you're a teenager and you're doing everything, how is your life different from maybe like someone else that you go to school with because of your career? And how do you balance work and school and friends and everything else that you have going on?
It is really different just because, you become kind of an adult at such a young age. You're taking meetings and working with adults and collaborating, and you have basically a whole career at 16 or 14 or 10 or, whenever you start. So definitely just kind of having to make certain sacrifices like, oh, I can't go to this party. I have an audition tomorrow or something like that. It's very different from a normal teenager's life who maybe doesn't have a whole career or something. But I am homeschooled now, which I just started after the pandemic. So that's helping me balance with school and things. But my friends I see a lot on the weekends or at dance or that sort of thing. So I still have some normalcy. It's a good balance between like normalcy and adult life already.
Yeah, that's great. You hear a lot of young actors, it's hard to find that balance. So I'm really glad that you're able to do that and have, dance and be able to see your friends and all that.
Right. Yes.
So I'd say that your most famous role so far is probably Stacey in Stranger Things seasons 2 and 3. So what was it like filming for that role?
I mean, it felt like I stepped into a time machine. It was like the set, the costumes, the makeup, the hair, just everything was so 80s. And I've always wanted to know what it was like to live in the 80s. So it was super fun. And everyone was so welcoming and kind and talented. And it was just such an amazing experience.
And so in both seasons 2 and 3, because the snowball scenes, like the school dance, and in the mall, you were basically surrounded by people your age, both in the cast and extras and just everyone there. So were you able to make some friends, maybe that you still talk to?
Yeah, I was. I mean, everyone was so nice, and I talked to a lot of the kids there and, the extras. I met Marcella Blanc. She was also a small role in the season 2, episode 9, who she danced with Will. She was the one that was like, hey, zombie boy, want to dance? And we are to this day like best friends. And so we text and FaceTime and visit each other all the time. We're like best friends. And Caleb McLaughlin's sister, I actually got to know her really well. She was on set like both times I was there. And so I keep in contact with her too. They're both just really good friends.
Oh, that's
That's really
awesome.
great. Do you have any behind the scenes stories from either the cast or just from interacting with all the people there?
Well, during lunch one time, the all the kids were like, "Let's go play hide and seek in the school." And so my friend Marcel and I were like, "Okay, let's go." And it was so much fun. We were just like running around through the school. You could see like the hole where the Demogorgon comes out in season 1, and like we were like, "Oh my gosh, this is so crazy!" But it was so much fun.
I like that you and her were friends, even because your characters are so opposite, because she was all nice and whatever, and you're
Right.
no, I'm not talking to you. So that's pretty funny, yeah.
So I think after season 2 especially, Stacey got a lot of hate for not dancing with Dustin. And I know a lot of people had a lot of things to say about that one. So do you have any weird or funny fan experiences because of that?
Well, everyone who I've met in person has always been very nice, but Twitter was insane. Like, I honestly, I couldn't take offense to anything because it was so funny. I would just sit and scroll for hours looking at like all of these like Stacey hate pages or messages, and they were so creative. I was like, this is hilarious. I can't even be mad that it's like they're talking about me or something. It was so funny. But everyone I've met in person has always been super nice. And so I'm grateful for that.
It's like at Sydney Bullock, I hate you. Why did you dance?
Yes, literally. I was like, guys, I promise I would have actually danced with them. It was just the character.
Oh my god, that yeah, you see so many people like who play villains who just get attacked and they're like, guys, you need to be able to like realize I'm not this person.
Yeah.
Right, exactly.
It's great that people you meet in person don't think that
Yeah.
you're actually Stacey.
Thank goodness. Yeah.
Twitter's always like a free for all, so.
Yeah, what's up with
Oh,
everyone's evil on Twitter?
No, seriously.
they're brutal.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, back to what you were kind of saying about like the 80s. Your costume for Stranger Things was probably, I mean, I'm guessing probably something that you wouldn't like choose to wear on a normal day. Maybe.
Right.
I mean, it could be, but so what was kind of like that transformation like for you? Like, did you like it? Like, how long did it take? Because it was a lot.
I loved it. I was loving every second of it. You're correct that I wouldn't really wear that on a daily basis, but the hair was the longest part because in season 2, I don't know if you remember, it was all like here and teeth and huge. That was all my real hair. Like I have a lot of hair and it was teased and they had to wash it once we were done filming because it was so tangled and just ginormous. I mean, it probably took like 2 hours just to do. So it was a really long process. And then in season 3, I wore a wig. So it wasn't as long of a process, but it was like hours, which was crazy, but
Yeah, and you kind of answered this, but like when you were there, like it literally felt like you were in the 80s because of like everyone there was just in the role, like in costume, and it's just time machine. That's so crazy.
it was really crazy. I was like, oh my gosh, I am not. And I filmed it in like 2017. I was like, this is not 2017 anymore.
It's 1980. Like,
Yeah, it was wild.
So if you had to pick like a decade that you could go back to for a movie or something to act in, like is there a specific one that you would pick, like a 60s, or do you like the 80s more?
Well, I loved the 80s. I would love to do something different though. Maybe like a 20s, 30s, 40s, that sort of area. I would love to do something there.
yeah, I love like decade, like time machine movies. Like
They're
those.
so cool.
Oh, me too.
I think the outfits are always like the most like the coolest part to see what they can like put together, and it's like actually so realistic, which you don't realize at first. And you look at it and it's like this is like actually how it was, and it's like actually like
I know
a
my
thing.
my parents like I literally wore that when I was 13.
I know, it's like so much detail goes into it. It's so awesome to see how it translates onto camera.
Yeah. So you were also in the movie Goosebumps 2, which like in Stranger Things, you had something literally blow up in your face. So what was filming that like?
It was crazy. I know I've had a lot of explosions. We've kind of laughed about that because it's just like a continuous trend. But that one, it was super fun. I became friends with like all of the boys on that set and they were all super sweet. And it was crazy just to have the explosion part of it. We would film it in different sections and so they obviously didn't have something actually explode on me, thank goodness. But it was like, one section before the explosion and then just destroyed the room. The next section after the explosion, so it was really fun though.
Yeah, I always wonder how they do those. Like where like your hair is all like and like the dust.
Oh my gosh, I know. I looked like a chimpanzee.
Like how did that work in Stranger Things? Because that was a little bit more like live, like it happened, like we saw it.
Right. Well, funny story. I thought we were doing a test run. I didn't realize we were actually exploding. So that was my genuine reaction. But they had like this little hookup into the cup. So there was actually orange Julius drink in it. And they had this machine kind of hooked up to it. And so it really did just explode. They had like a little trigger and then it just exploded. We filmed like the beginning section whenever Elle and Max are seeing them for the first time without it connected to the machine, and then they gave me a different cup with like a little bit of orange Julius but mainly just like a little trigger inside, and then they just exploded it. It really exploded onto me.
Like one take, we're good. You're
I know. I was like, I really hope we don't have to do like another take because that would take a
marathon.
really long time to like redo everything.
Yeah, absolutely. And also, I just realized in Goosebumps 2, you were also working with Peyton Witch, if I'm correct. And you guys were both in Stranger Things, so that's kind of interesting.
I know. We thought that was such a fun coincidence, but it was really fun working with him.
Yeah, that's awesome. So you're becoming an inspiration to young actors all over the world. So who are some of your role models, either when you were first starting out or now, or all of them in between?
Well, let's see, there's so many. As an actress, I mean, Meryl Streep, she's like a very obvious answer, but I've watched old interviews of her and she's just such a humble, kind person. So she's really an inspiration to me. And Denzel Washington, he's so incredible and goes and speaks at universities and schools, and he's very into giving back to the community. And so those are definitely two people that I would just love to grow up and be like.
That's awesome.
So I think we're all happy that quarantine is finally coming to an end after over a year now at this point, and filming and a bunch of other things are becoming more and more safe for people to do. But how has quarantine like how did it play a role in your career? Like did you get certain opportunities from it, and how did that work out?
It was really difficult because since everything was shut down, we couldn't go see acting coaches, we couldn't go, I couldn't take classes. It was a really difficult time. You had to film your auditions at your house with your whole family there, and your dogs are barking and people are outside, and it was a really crazy experience, but it was good for self-reflection and a good learning experience. But it was nice to know that everyone in the business was going through it too. So it wasn't just a singular experience.
Hmm. Well, obviously that sucks. And I know you said that you started doing homeschooling after quarantine. So I'm not sure like kind of what happened in between that. Like did you think that it was easier like in okay, because there's so many pros and cons. Because when you're in quarantine, you're doing online school, so you have the time to, film the auditions. But at the same time, you're like at home, so it's hard to do the actual auditions. So do you think in like the long run, do you think it benefited you or harmed you or mix of both? How did it affect you?
The pandemic,
Hmm.
I do think it benefited me because I don't think I would have done online homeschool if it weren't for the pandemic, because my plan is to graduate a year early. And so I was going to do that at my regular public school, but because of the pandemic, I couldn't do the summer courses I would need to work ahead. So then I was pushed back a year. I wasn't able to graduate a year early. So that's why we decided to go on to online school. And it's been so much better for me and really great for my career and just everything. So I'm grateful, even though it was such a hard time and not fun in the moment. I am grateful that it happened because it really did change the course of my life in school.
Mhm. Did you pick up any new hobbies or interesting skills over quarantine? Because I feel like everyone has their like,
Right. Let's see. I've always been into like calligraphy and handwriting, but I became a little obsessed over quarantine, and now it's like an everyday thing. I'm labeling all my notes with like my calligraphy pens. Like it's becoming maybe a little too time consuming, but that's probably my biggest obsession.
oh yeah, I had so many obsessions like through the different phases. It was like baking, and then like it was like becoming really into my Spanish class, like just like being like I'm gonna learn Spanish. Like you have the phases, right?
Right. No, I completely understand that.
Yeah, I had a mug cake phase for like 3 months straight, and like every night I would just make like a different mug cake. I'd be like, okay, mom, we need to go buy peanut butter tonight because I wanted to go make a peanut butter chocolate mug cake. At one point,
Those are
she was like, they're so good. And at one point, she was just like, all right, you gotta like, you've had like 4 mug cakes in the past week. Like, it's kind of time to start slowing down. I was like, probably.
No, that reminded me of something. I've become like an oatmeal fanatic.
Oatmeal is so good.
I Right? It's so good. It's so underrated.
I
I
know.
put like peanut butter or almond butter on my oatmeal, like cinnamon and bananas. And it's like an everyday thing. I need to restrain myself, but that definitely also happened over quarantine.
Have you ever had overnight oats? Have you ever made those?
No, but I've wanted to try them.
Really good. Over quarantine, I would make those like every night, like because you put it and then like you wake up and it's like there and it's like you put the strawberries and like the peanut butter and it was just like Yeah.
I'm gonna try that. I'm gonna take your advice.
Yeah, try it. Let me know.
I will.
Aside from acting and calligraphy and oatmeal, what are some of your other hobbies that you do on like a normal basis? Or do you have like any other passions besides acting that you could see yourself going into in the future?
I have been dancing since a really young age, and I dance probably about 20 hours a week or so. Like it's very intense. I do a lot of dancing, so I do really love that. It's been a passion of mine for a long time. So
That's very cool.
Yeah, that's great.
Um sorry, I totally just messed up my question. So
no, you're fine.
so when we were talking to you earlier, we talked about how you still stay in contact with people from Stranger Things. So are there still people that you know from Goosebumps that you still talk to?
Oh yeah, I talked to most of the boys, Christian Finlayson and Matthew Vasquez, Peyton Witch, Jeremy Ray Taylor, all of them. They're super, super sweet kids, and I just had a great time with them and still stay in contact with them.
I feel like as you work with more and more people, it just turns into like kind of like what is it, like the 7 degrees of separation, whatever. Like you're always like seeing people that it's like, oh, like, I just worked with you here and I know this from this person. So like you're just like creating that like thing where you're just like, because all like the teen actors just all know each other now.
Right, it's like a web. I mean, I mentioned my friend Marcel earlier. She just worked on a movie with one of the guys from Goosebumps, and I'm like, oh my gosh, my worlds are colliding. This is so great.
You're gonna have this like huge group of friends that yeah. And I'm sure you were all like really close, like I don't know about really close, but like during quarantine you're all there for each other because it's like, yeah, we're all doing our auditions from home. We're not
Right.
filming.
We're all in the same boat.
Exactly.
So, do you have any goals or plans for the future that you would be able to share with us?
Yes, well, like I mentioned before, I'm graduating a year early, which is very exciting. And hopefully, I'll be traveling and moving because I live in Kentucky right now. So I'm planning on moving after I graduate, which is exciting. And I'm going out to LA for a few weeks in August. So
Cool.
that's going to be fun. Yeah, so those are fun things coming up.
That's awesome. And how do your friends and family feel about your career? And like, how are they there supporting you?
Everyone's super supportive. It's yeah, they're just really great, really interested in it, and very just really genuine. And I know who my real friends are when they're just so kind and supportive. And it's not a traditional career per se, and so everyone just is very understanding and there for me. I'm very grateful.
And as of right now, do you hope to continue acting as you grow up?
Yes, I hope to do it for the rest of my life.
That's great. Well,
It's
I
very exciting.
mean, we're super excited to see you with Meryl Streep in a movie in years.
Oh, fingers crossed. That would be a dream.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, I know you said you wanted to go to you're actually going to LA for a few weeks, right? So, do you know I know you said you were going to move soon. Do you plan on moving to LA or New York or any like busy place like that? I don't know.
LA is the number one plan, but with this business, everything is always up in the air. And so if something happens where I wouldn't be able to do that, I would possibly go to New York or Atlanta or maybe Nashville or somewhere around there.
Yeah, a lot of people I feel like they're like, I'm planning on moving here, but like I could literally get a job tomorrow where I need to move to like Australia, so we'll see.
Right, exactly.
That's pretty cool. You get to travel a lot and stuff. I don't know what's it like in like Kentucky, like as opposed to LA. I don't even know.
Um, I'm not, I am looking forward to moving just because I've lived here my entire life. But it has a lot of really pretty farms and horses, and which I love animals. So every single time we drive by a horse farm, I'm like a dog sticking his head out the window. It's like exciting every time, but it's really pretty.
That's great.
Yeah.
Well, Cindy, thank you so much for coming on. We had a great time. And I
Thank
hope you
you.
do. So if
Thank you.
people enjoyed this interview and they want to follow you on social media, where can they do that?
My main social media platform is on Instagram, Sydney Bullock _, but you can also find me on Twitter and Facebook.
Guys, but if you follow her on Twitter, let's keep it calm. We all know that she's not actually Stacey. She would dance with Dustin in a heartbeat. Like
Yes, I
nice
would. I
person.
promise.
Don't worry.
And if you enjoyed this episode, please make sure to follow us on Instagram and TikTok at acoam.podcast and on our Twitter at acoam_podcast, where there's absolutely no Stacey hate tolerated, by the way. You can stay there to keep up with us and be the first to hear about fun guests like Sydney. And we do have a few very special announcements coming up, so please be aware of that as well.
Make sure you're following so you can be the first to hear about those things. And thank you all for tuning in. We'll see you next week on A Coming of Age Movie.